I'll take roll. Not really. Sure. So I'll kick us off with our usual. And good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Can you hear us okay out there? Anybody? Okay. No echo. Echo.
Forget this, just me.
Oh, we are getting so close to the end, y'all. Today is Wednesday, November the 12th, 2025. Tonight is our final lecture. It is arguably the most interesting, the most consequential lecture of your entire career. So pay close attention. There will be questions about this slide deck on the final exam. Let's see if it's paying attention. So tonight, lecture. Next week is a work day, so we won't have a lecture. Come to class with your questions. Then we have the Thanksgiving break, and the final assignment is due at 6 p.m. on December 3rd. So you still got about 3 more weeks to get her done. No, you don't have a final exam. Jerica, no exam, just a final project. But I think in tonight's slide deck, there will be some hints about how to get a perfect score on the final project. Or maybe not.
Maybe not.
Maybe not. I have started looking at, but have not started fully grading assignment 4. No feedback yet on those.
I felt pretty good that I can get them done next week.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely before class next week. So we are down to the final assignment. You guys should be neck deep working on the final assignment. Again, you're encouraged to use the stuff that you've created during the course of the class to build your response. We are looking for something along the lines of an after-action report, post-mortem. Basically, your analysis of the incident is what we really care about. Again, what you make on assignment 4 is irrelevant to what you're going to make on assignment 5. If you're going through the assignment and using your assignment 4, then as the CPO, perhaps you recognize some things you may have missed, or maybe some areas of improvement. And that's what we're really looking for is that you may have recognized some weaknesses in the previous work. And it could be for any of the assignments, maybe even in your 1-year plan. If your 1-year plan didn't include creating an incident response plan, and it was kind of an afterthought, I mean, that would be another thing to point out. So anyway, this is your opportunity to shine. We know that there are facts and conclusions that are not included in the scenario, and it is up to you to tell us the rest of the story. We've had a couple of submissions. Some folks are on interesting and entertaining courses, so I'm looking forward to seeing the results. Any questions at this point about assignment 5 before we turn it over to Jennifer for the best and last lecture of the year? All right.
Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, Jennifer Davis.
Thank you. I'll be here all week, folks. Not really. Okay, so tonight, this is more just kind of, we're going to talk about some current trends and issues in data privacy. A lot of it's the stuff we've already talked about most of this semester already, so it shouldn't be a lot of surprise, but it's just things for you to kind of look out for in your future endeavors. Okay, number 1. I don't know why I had the little transition, but state privacy laws. Right now, we've got about 20 states that have signed privacy laws. There's still no national law. Wait a minute. Somebody comment.
Quick question on assignment 5.
Okay.
Are you expecting all of the templates from earlier assignments to be included as artifacts filled out to our scenarios? No. What I would expect, based on the scenario, there should be some sort of recorded reporting of the incidents. So even in your final response, maybe in your IRP, you had a draft notice, and in your recordation of the final assignment, maybe there were things that you wanted to tweak or change. Maybe there's something there. So you're not confined to the template of what you created. But if you did deviate, I would say, we were getting ready to release this public notice, and we realized that
We were wrong in what we were saying.
we were wrong. So, something like that would be a interesting examination of the work that you've done. Does that help, and does that answer your question, William?
I'll come off mute. It's easier than typing. So yeah, it was just, are you expecting all the artifacts to be included, like the notification to the GDRP, et cetera?
If you provide a notification, if your analysis determines that notification is required, then yes, we would expect to see the notification that you
got it. Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Stein.
Okay. So, like I say, this was updated October 10th. As you can tell, there's about 20 states that have their own privacy laws, still no national law. And while there's a lot of things that are complementary and, that are across those 20 states, if you do business in a multi-state jurisdiction, which almost every company does nowadays due to, technology and the allowance of it, these are all laws that you are going to have to follow. Massachusetts, this might be the first year, though, that there's no new state law, but Massachusetts is, I think at the end of September, they got out of one chamber, so there's a chance they could get it passed before the end of the year, but I don't know. But just you're going to have to think about this. So, like, if you live in Colorado, Colorado has laws. What if they're different than Utah and California? Nebraska, Colorado's stuck there in between Utah and Nebraska, so those states have multi. So these are just things you're going to have to pay attention to. What you do in your state might be slightly different than with the states that you're also doing business in. So when you're looking at those things, when we look at, privacy notices, you get yours in the mail all the time, and it'll say like, for residents of California, this applies. There's going to be more and more of those, which at some point is going to probably be a bigger push why there should be a national privacy law. But I think our federal government has other things to worry about at this point. So AI governance, this is a big one. I mean, AI is the buzzword. It's everywhere. It does require additional governance and risk management. It's a huge area. It's not just a matter of, your employees putting sensitive data in the models, which unfortunately, happens, but you have policies that say don't do that. So if they do, they can be disciplined. Colorado's, which I have it in the notes, so you don't even have to write all this, but everything's in the notes. Colorado's AI Act takes effect next year and requires entities that use AI in certain use cases to have a risk management program, conduct risk assessments, AI risk assessments annually on those uses, and provide specific disclosures to consumers before using them. And this is things like, like the whole idea of the human in the loop. So just say you qualify for SNAP benefits, should they be available, but just say you qualify for SNAP benefits. One, is AI making that determination? Who has the final say? Is there a human in the loop that's looking at it? Is AI assisting? Maybe which applications are missing information? Okay, things like that they can automate some of the processes. But you don't want to leave it up to AI to determine those most important things that affect individuals' rights. Do you want AI to determine whether or not your, life-saving medication is covered by your health insurance, or what procedure you're going to get, things of that nature. So there needs to be a human in the loop, and all of those need to have risk management. But so AI, of course, is just exploding. It's everywhere. People are still trying to figure out how to manage it. Most people are, looking just at the ChatGPTs, but, there's a whole other sect of, using AI. We have a process that we're looking at. We haven't done it yet, but we're looking at, so anytime somebody wants to purchase technology or implement it, they have to submit a form justifying it. So we can look and see, does it fit into the overall statewide, plan program? Is it duplicative? Do we approve it? Is it, again, we don't want somebody buying something from China. It goes through a whole risk assessment on our part, from an architecture standpoint, from a data standpoint, from a security standpoint. So, at some point we would like to automate those, that like we upload all of our policies and then AI can do an initial review against those policies, things like that. But ultimately the humans are the ones who have to make that final decision. So that's going to be something that's coming more and more and more, and having AI specifically policies, because they're not just going to fall into your normal privacy policies. They're going to complement them.
And that might be a cool assignment for next year.
It might be.
You might want to do something along those lines. So we're doing some test driving of Microsoft Copilot.
Are we?
And one of the things that we've done is some initial applicant analysis, where we have a position description and we upload the resumes, and just, we're not using it as in a determinative fashion at all,
Right.
but just testing the analytical capabilities, the summarization
Right.
abilities of the tools, and it's giving us some interesting results.
Now, do you have an AI acceptable use policy as
No,
required
not
by law?
Not yet.
Okay. Mine's under final review right now.
Well, the court has a proposed administrative order number 23 that's been published for comment, but they haven't adopted.
No, like I said, we have an acceptable use policy that's under final review right now, because state law does require that if you're going to use AI, you have to have an acceptable use policy. But, some of the other areas of AI that, like I say, we're getting ready to roll out the pilot of Copilot Chat and then Copilot. Because not everybody needs a full Copilot. Most of what everybody's going to be using AI for is a Copilot Chat. Make this letter better. I have to draft the letter or whatever. But, one of the things, so Arkansas, like every other state, is under new guidance that I think it's the SNAP error rate, has to be under an average of 6%. We're already 3 months into the new SNAP year, and our average is higher than that. And the error rate is not necessarily just fraudulent applications. There are times to where, the shutdown is a perfect example for like unemployment claims. Like you could go get unemployment, but then once you get your back pay, when the government reopens, you have to pay that back. So it was just an error in payment. It wasn't a fraudulent thing. But using AI to kind of help look at those anomalies, one, for fraud, abuse, waste, so just the errors and things of that nature that you just can't manually do with any kind of efficiency. But ultimately, it's not about making the decisions about whether somebody or not gets that, because it has to be a human final in the loop. And, we've kind of, it's a sliding scale. The more important the benefit, then the more scrutiny it takes. When you're looking at people's health care, their salary, their public assistance, those things that are more vital, when you're using AI, it requires more scrutiny by a human than, draft me this letter.
Part of the challenge is that our regulatory infrastructure is so complicated.
Exactly.
For humans to apply the regulations
Absolutely.
fairly and uniformly without mistake
Absolutely.
is impossible.
Absolutely. And, like everybody right now is wanting chatbots on their websites. Sounds like a great, easy AI win. However, what those AI agents do is go out and search everything that's on the server for that website. Well, if I'm asking for a policy, what if you've got 6 different versions out there on your website? It requires a lot of cleanup on the back end, and a lot of people are just like, well, put some AI on it, like it's going to fix it all. Just like it's like a very quick thing without thinking like, we've got to clean up our stuff. Like we have to have maybe policies in place. Like if you don't have the policies, then what can you feed the AI to analyze against the applications? Like if you didn't have the job descriptions, you can't analyze applicants against it if you don't have the policies. So a lot of that is requiring a lot of, the cleanup on the back end, because we might just have a link to the current policy, but the last 6 versions of that policy is still out there. And AI will find those things, and we can't give good guidance. It's goes back to the same argument of, trash in, trash out.
Ooh, one of the things we haven't done yet, we often conduct our first interviews on Zoom or Teams, and we haven't used the Copilot plugin for the recording and summary analysis. That would be kind of interesting to see.
Might have a comment, or do they leave?
Quick question on no.
Might have been somebody coming or going. So, again, AI is like, AI will fix it, but there's a lot of work that has to be done. One of the things that as a government entity we're looking at, those are records that are created. So therefore, everything I feed into Copilot is technically considered a government record, and therefore the record of what I've entered and what I've received is discoverable under the Freedom of Information Act. So
if they're required to be kept or otherwise kept.
Exactly, but because of this, because again, anything we have is a government record. So we're looking at, okay, so this is requiring us to look at our FOI policy. It's also requiring us to look at our data retention policy.
AI prompt retention policy.
Because we don't want to, and we found this out a difficult way, that all of our Teams messages, were kept in perpetuity. And it wasn't until we got a FOI that literally wanted these hundreds of millions of records I mean, it was like 100 gig of data for just Teams message that we didn't realize, but because we're in the middle of this FOI, we can't just immediately say, oh, we're only gonna keep 30 days worth. So I'm like, let's get ahead of this AI prompt. Maybe you don't want it to be, you know, a 24-hour, because what if I'm working on something within AI and, you know, like I'll feed it something and it'll say, well, you know, can you refine it using this? And I want to keep working on that project. So maybe it needs to be kept for 7 days. So we're looking at that, but that means we also have to put it in policy and update all of that. So it's not just a matter of, hey, here's your Copilot. There are ramifications. So. What?
Manuals one.
Oh. All right. This one is interesting. So I think this is going to be something we're going to see more and more, an expanded definition of what is sensitive data. More and more apps are collecting things like your location, your biometrics, you know, things of that nature that we couldn't collect at one point in time when it was just your name, address, social security number. You know, the other, I read an article today about Italy suspending the use of the facial recognition technology in the airport pending a long-running investigation. But how many times have you gone to the airport recently?
Yep.
And they check you in by doing a facial scan, and they'll tell you, we're not holding on to it. But how do we know?
Yeah.
Or what if you were in, you know, on the street now, and all this, you know, police departments now encourage people, if you have a Ring camera, to connect your Ring camera to them and allow them access, so that way should things happen, they have access to additional cameras. You know, facial recognition, license plate readers. I mean, these are things that are coming up. The location data, I think, is big because, you know, which I realize we all have our iPhone in our pocket, but, you know, what if your work gives you a work vehicle and there's a GPS on it? Well, what happens when you're after work hours? Are they still logging where you go? What if you go to the strip club on a Friday night, which is clearly after your work hours? What if you drove to an abortion clinic? You know, what happens if you're in the middle of a divorce? Can you subpoena those GPS records so you can maybe show your spouse has been these places that they shouldn't have been? I don't know, but it's a lot of data that we're collecting about your location. And while at the same time having, you know, your Life 360 and all that stuff is great, so you know where your kids are and everybody's safe,
Yeah.
but what are the ramifications of having that?
Yeah. What if you're at a prosecutor's meeting?
Anything.
Well, I mean, insurance companies are killing it with that right now. I mean, trying to LoJack every vehicle.
Oh, yeah.
Drive safe and safe.
Yeah, and I think I may have mentioned it earlier this semester, but very frustrating because, I mean, at the end of the day, you know, they're like, oh, we'll give you a discount, but it's really more about, we'll cancel you if you don't like what you're doing.
Exactly.
And what are they doing with that data?
Exactly. Are they retaining it?
Yeah, I asked them straight up and they couldn't answer that.
No, nobody can.
I don't know.
A lot of places are going to requiring specific consent is required, which, you know, we have always here in the US operated under you're automatically enrolled until you opt in, whereas Europe and the GDPR take the opposite approach where it is specifically you have to opt in. So a lot of places are moving more towards that. And then I thought it was interesting, I read somewhere about behavioral data from like virtual reality and stuff like that. I'd never really considered that, but that again is behavior. You've got these massive amounts of medical records. I mean, it's just massive amounts of data that we are collecting, and we're the ability to collect even more and more. And so I think it's going to be expanded past our, you know, name, address, social security number. I think there's going to be a trend towards a rise in enforcement. I think this was the one that I had the link under that I apparently did not leave the link under, but I'll try to find the link I was referring to because it had like a lot of like the top so many incidents that happened. Some of them were what we think of as like a cyber breach. Some of them were not, and they were massive amounts of, you know, information, and it was quite interesting. this is particular under GDPR because, you know, they have a much stricter law. But I do think that more and more fines and non-compliance, and this is one of the things that when you're working with a patchwork of laws across the country, I think you're going to see more and more fines, and it's going to be inadvertent, but it's going to eventually call for a push to do something nationally. It's going to have to.
Bribes too, probably.
Bribes, absolutely. Your favorite one, generative AI, which we did talk about this just a second ago. But yeah, bias in your algorithms. And here's the thing, how do you know it's bias in there? You've got to have a human in the loop. You have to train it. But, you know, this comes back to employees need to be trained on AI. You know, maybe not every employee needs advanced AI training, but, you know, maybe there's an AI user that's just a responsible AI use. But then there are others who might be looking at the outcome of AI, say they are the human in the loop that's reviewing the SNAP application. So maybe they need to know and certain things to recognize as some bias that may come out of there. And then the people who are developing and deploying the AI tools maybe need advanced or expert training. So training is going to be vital. In fact, our acceptable use policy does require that everybody go through training. But you know, you've got compliance, you've got data integrity, deep fake generation, which, you know, nowadays, I mean, all the videos that are on Facebook, are they real or are they not? We put in our acceptable use policy that you cannot create any audio, video, or images of any real person because we don't want somebody using those tools to create something.
Yeah, remember the privacy torts we talked about some weeks ago? So that's.
And then leakage, and that was one of the links that was in the things that have happened this year, and it was leakage in the AI. So data's being out there, and again, if you put personal data in ChatGPT, you can't get it back. You can't say, oh, I'm so sorry, ChatGPT, may I have that back?
Erase all memory of
Yeah.
my interaction with you.
Please delete. Okay, cross-border data transfer restrictions. So this I'm starting to see more and more, but as you know, at one point in time, everybody was housed in your data center here in the state or on your campus. But as more and more people are moving to the Amazon Web Services, we're moving to the cloud. This is an issue because in the U.S., well, no, in Arkansas, at least if it comes across my desk, I'm going to ask where your servers are located because I'm going to put language in a contract that says data may not be housed, transmitted, maintained, processed, or accessed outside of the United States. And that is what our security policy also says. And people push back on that a lot because in the rise of the 24/7 support, you know, who's doing support when it's nighttime here? It's going to be people across the globe. Well, someone on the opposite side of the globe is going to have to access the data, even if it's housed here. They're going to have access to it, and it may be transmitted or reprocessed or whatever in order to provide that 24/7 support. So a lot of times people say, okay, your data is here in our data center in the U.S., but our support is elsewhere. And a lot of times people will go to other countries because they can get cheaper labor. You know, there's a number of reasons why they can do it. And so this is becoming more and more an issue. We're currently in a battle right now with a vendor, and they want an exception because their data is stored here, but their support is not. And we're pushing back and saying no. But it's going to be an issue because we don't have control about what happens once it leaves the U.S. And here's the thing. HIPAA may apply here, but it doesn't apply across the globe. And even if you hold your vendor here responsible, there's still no way to get to that third-party actor. And so, you know, third-party vendor management is a big issue as well. So this one is coming up more and more. And that's why you do have, like, you'll have the Amazon Web, you know, government tenants, which they know that other governments fall into this, and they'll be, only in the US, but it is an issue. Okay, children's online safety and youth data. We did talk about this before, the COPA, and this kind of expands it. There's a lot of push to expand the protection and the consent and access of technology, particularly social media and things of that nature, to those under 18, particularly those under 13, which is where COPA applies. And having an age-appropriate design. It's kind of like, it goes back to, the Camel cigarette argument from years and years ago that, even though it was 18 or 21, I don't even know if you have to be able to buy cigarettes, 18 or 21, but Joe Camel, their mascot, was, intentionally made to kind of target kids to get them smoking. And this is kind of a lot of the same thing. Websites are intentionally brought, on to target those young kids. But then they're putting in there like, oh, you have to have your parents' consent, and by signing up, you agree that you have your parents' consent. Well, the child can't consent to say I have my parents' consent. So there's a lot of that kind of stuff, and having an affirmative consent by a parent. Ads and cookies. This is a big thing. How many times have you talked about something, and then next thing you know, your ads on your Google or whatever are targeting what Amazon is like, you would like this, and it's something I was just talking with someone about. The tracking practices, including advertising and analytics. 8 additional states this year have joined in with California and Colorado requiring browser signals to be honored as opt-outs of sales and targeted advertising. And so this is going to be something that regulators are going to continue to kind of struggle with, because, some that's needed for like browser functionality, because then I can just go back to like where I was with the cookies, but then how does it track? And, Google is advertising in your Gmail thing, but how does it know? Because, in fact, I had some friends at Gil Elrod that sued Google years ago, because at some point it had to read your email to know, even if it wasn't reading it, it was reading it enough to know what to target to you. And so things of that nature.
The location data too.
Oh.
And the way they're using it.
Yes. All right, data breaches and incident response, which you should know this ad nauseum. Oh wait, I think here's the one. Okay, this is the link. I did have the link. Okay. We've talked, and a lot of times, again, this class is not necessarily a cyber breach. There could be cybersecurity issues. However, we all heard about the break-in at the Louvre, that they stole all the jewels. I don't think it was the crown jewels, but it was one of the jewels.
Napoleonic stuff.
Jewel, yeah. Okay, so investigations revealed that the museum's video surveillance systems had outdated software,
Yep.
weak passwords, and network segmentation
Of course.
So it doesn't necessarily mean that they used those to get in, but they were able to exploit them. They used credentials such as Louvre. Hello, that's like leaving your password as password 1. And so it left administrative access open. And it undermined the camera coverage and incident response during the theft. I like that one because, again, they came in through the window, but they knew exactly how to exploit certain things. That is a perfect example of how you can have an incident that has nothing to do with cyber. Can you see that on that screen? No, I got to drag. I thought that's what it was. Okay. Okay.
Did you just accept all cookies?
I did. Sure did. So this goes through the breaches that occurred over the course of time. So you've got, and a lot of these are some, okay, Swiss Bank hit by ransomware. They stole 2, and this was 7 days ago, a week. They stole 2.5 terabytes of data. That's a lot of data. And right here, I thought was interesting that not only was it customer stuff, it was internal source code. I mean, that's like basically I've stolen the purse that has the keys to the house. So you have ransomware, 1.5 terabytes, Russian linked. Here's Hungary, so they're not, and this is, I guess, TISA party supporters. So, I mean, that's attacking your, political, your political structure. Qantas, if you've ever flown Qantas, had a ransomware, they leaked the personal information. Breach tied to Salesforce systems, hitting 1 billion records across 39 firms. Now, everybody uses Salesforce in some way. The Louvre, which again, I think is a great example of Red Hat. Discord, all the kids are using Discord right now. And this was a vendor breach. So again, it's an external vendor. So third party risk management, vendor management is huge. I think we talked about this one in class about the law firm that got hit. You can't do any billing, so it means your law firm can't work. Here's a cloud backup breach. Imaging, healthcare records, 200 gig of data, a lot of data. 183 million email accounts with passwords. Data harvest from infected devices, which, again, here, click this link. Volkswagen.
Did that say D-Base?
8base.
Oh, 8Base.
The Ministry of Defense for the UK. Didn't make you feel good.
Ministry of Magic.
Yeah, exactly. I just reread Harry Potter again. Here's a nursery breach. Nursery chains of schools. They posted profiles and images of children on the dark web in an attempt to extort. That's terrifying because, especially with AI and you have young children and pedophiles and it's terrifying. That was just November and October. And November's not even over. So you can look through this, but I just shot Gucci, all your high end here. Harrods, everybody, if you've gone to London, you've shopped there. Cyber attack disrupts major airports. So, nobody is safe. It's every industry right here. BitLocker, and in BitLocker,
That's what encryption.
as I say, it's the encryption stuff.
Yeah.
But there's a flaw in it because people think my stuff's encrypted. It's okay. Well,
It's encrypted at rest using BitLocker.
exactly. Well, here you go. Chrome, always. Let's see. That's a Salesforce. Google Salesforce data breach. It asked 2.5 billion users to update their passwords. How many of those do you think did it?
5, maybe 10 users.
Yeah. TransUnion, again, we don't even have a choice whether or not we want to use that. Another credit union here. So again, just this goes to show you that the hackers are out there. I say hackers, but again, look at the Louvre. This was shoddy data and cyber practices. They did not update their software. They did not change their passwords, which I cannot believe that. And they came in through the window. You know, and again, they came in through the window. I mean, what's to say if I saw somebody walking around this building in a UPS uniform, or there was somebody walking around, I mean, I passed two guys in the hallway this afternoon at work in FedEx uniforms. How do I know they were really there to deliver a package? I don't, so that's why you have to be careful. Otherwise, they're gonna come steal your Napoleonic jewels.
A lot of places too, don't have the skill set to manage some aspects of their technology. For us, it's our security system. So we use Sonatrol for our
Yeah.
security system. So we have a vendor that does that.
Yeah.
And I have no idea what their patch policy is.
No.
And when they're updating.
No.
I have no idea. It's totally outside.
Third-party risk is terrifying. We do not manage it.
Well, it's just everywhere, every system now, I mean, it's just cobbled together. It's about everywhere.
It is.
Same,
And
I mean, same thing on the web, I mean, you look at half the web apps that built, you have
exactly, it's like,
like.
it's like, I'm gonna build a house. I contracted the general contractor who then puts all the work out to subs. I'm assuming he's making the subs do the work, but I don't know. He can tell me he is, but am I going out there checking? You know, do we require reports? You know, what's your latest security audit on your software? Or, you know, you want us to put, you know, your stuff in, this is your data center, what's your latest security audit, things like that. But it's terrible. We do not manage. We don't verify nothing. We just take their word for it. And then if something happens, well, hopefully we had it in the contract language enough that we can at least recoup our money. But you can maybe recoup money, but you know, can't necessarily recoup lost trust, reputation, things of that nature. And, you know, like the Targets of the world will eventually bounce back, but it could also bankrupt some companies. So, all right, data governance converged. So we're really at a point now, and we've seen it in this class, how everybody gets cybersecurity and privacy intertwined. But by the time you add in the AI regulation, it is all a mix. But they are separate, but they are all closely intertwined, and that's why it's important that those people work together. And that's the next slide here. The evolving role of the Chief Privacy Officer. They used to be just over, you know, privacy, but now there's ethics, there's compliance, you have AI accountability, and where does it fall? You know, they work closely with the cybersecurity. Like, I moved into a new role, so our new CPO is reporting to our Chief Security Officer, which to me right now makes a lot more sense, because a lot of that is intertwined. You know, they're going to work well with our AI officer when we get it. So it's just, they're kind of multi-hats at this point. And again, you can make policies, but is anybody checking the compliance? You know, are we doing regular checkup? I mean, it's, my parenting style is trust but verify. Do we do that with our technology? Most of the time, no. Data brokers and secondary use. You know, we've got these large scale, and this is the things like LastPass. You know, people use those because they can't remember all their passwords, so they use LastPass. So what happens if LastPass has a breach? You have everybody's log-on credentials for all these number of sites. Plus, you've just got companies that go out and scour the web. I mean, there's no more the idea of, let me take this picture down and nobody will see it. Or, you know, kids thinking, oh, I can use my Snapchat and nobody's going to see what, you know, it's gone in 20 minutes or 10 seconds or however long it is. That's not the case anymore. You know, people will take a screenshot, but this is, I think, even more important in things like criminal records. So I'm charged with a crime. So my mugshot is out there. So they go out there, these places go out and scrape the internet, get all this information. It shows Jennifer Davis, here's my mugshot. But it never shows whether or not I'm convicted. What if the charges were dropped? What if there was no evidence and I was found not guilty? And so if I go to apply for a job, how do I know if they do a background check, they're not using one of these third-party companies?
Well, what if you gave them somebody else's name?
Exactly. But they're not using, but how do I know they're not using one of these third-party companies? But no matter what, my name and picture is out there and it looks like I was, convicted. So it's things like that, and then they just house all this data. So there's a lot of scrutiny for that. All right. I knew it would be a short class. Data retention and deletion. Not only is this important, but what happens when your company goes bankrupt, like 23andMe?
Yeah, so what happened with all the 23andMe?
It's technically still up. It's not, I think it went through like a reorg.
Okay.
I don't think it's completely folded yet. But what do you do with all that data?
Sell it.
I mean, would
I
you
mean,
sell it?
yeah, it's an asset.
Exactly. But I mean,
Well, yeah, and what are your rights after?
Well, and
once it's transferred? I mean,
exactly. Maybe I didn't want to sign up with Ancestry.com, but I was okay with signing up with 23andMe. But then it gets sold to Ancestry. How do I go and do I have a way that I can say, I don't want to be in your database? Can you go back to 23andMe now and say, I no longer want to participate, please delete my records?
Please delete me.
Yeah, so,
Let me go.
but again, like we were talking about, like with the AI, for Freedom of Information Act. So we've got these records. What is our data retention policy? Just because you immediately set it up and it keeps it in perpetuity, these are things you have to think about. Like, do I need to keep it in perpetuity? Absolutely not. Email. The state used to operate under your email was backed up nightly. And then it went to tape for like 30 days and then would roll off. And so just say, like one time there was a Jennifer Davis that also worked in the AG's office at the time when I was working at education. She had a autopsy report and photos that was emailed to her, but they had inadvertently emailed it to me. Because we're both Jennifer.Davis, and I was at Arkansas.gov, and hers was ArkansasAG.gov. Well, I didn't want that in my email for a number of reasons. So you could do the double delete, because I did it in the same day, and it would actually delete it, so it never made it to backup. When we went to Office 365, that was not the case. It was like always there. And I have said this probably for 8 years now. There does not need to be a 7-year window of retention on email. Even the state records retention policy is only like 4 on substantive email. That you have to have some way to be able to delete stuff, or at least you need to tell people, because what if we get things like that we don't want in our email? But then they're constantly, it's like you never can delete any of it. So that's something that your records retention is something, those policies should be looked at regularly, along with like your privacy policies, your PIAs and all that. Is this still valid for today? Or do we realize that, hey, these AI prompts are generating so many records that the 7 days we had is too much. Maybe we need to lower it to 3 days.
7 minutes.
Exactly. 24 hours, that kind of stuff. These are not a one and done. We've talked about it, that these are all living policies, and technology changes so rapidly. All right.
What do y'all think about it seems like some of that could be remedied with a better actual policy. We don't, right now, everybody's doing everything differently. If you had some governance at a larger umbrella, then companies can start to build, and products can be built to address those types of things. But right now, it's like, you don't have a target. You don't have anything to shoot for. I mean, as I've been working on this project, one of the things that I've just kind of default to is like, okay, what's the most stringent policy on this
Exactly.
particular thing? That's what I'm doing.
Exactly. And
Because it
that's,
doesn't seem tenable to me to maintain 50 different
no,
stances for every state in the union and then have to deal with GDPR and everything else. It just doesn't.
but I mean, if you're the Walmart, so Walmart operates in all 50 states. So you have to do 20 different things.
Right.
Plus the non-privacy law states. And you're right, it is. Oh, I find it interesting that there is a lot of federal like AI regulations, but there's still no national, that it applies to like federal organizations and not even all of them. So it is interesting, but you're right. It is going to have to be because a combination of all the
Yeah.
states and what's
I
going to work.
think there's a CGIS working group.
Yes.
working on CGIS AI
Yes.
policy.
And CJIS, which is criminal justice data, it is interesting to me because like my social security number is sensitive regardless of where you get it. It doesn't matter if it's off a piece of paper, if it's off of this, if it's out of this system. CJIS data, like your mug shots and all your information that you do, those are published on every county inmate, jail inmate roster for the county jail. So that data is the same data, but if it comes from the FBI or NCIC, then CJIS covers it. But it's coming from the jail, so at some point the exact same data is no longer covered by it. It's bizarre that it's the same data, but depending upon where it originates. So then you got that argument. Whereas like my social security number is protected regardless. But you're right. I mean, having a national law would make things stronger and easier and allow some stability. But, probably by the time at the rate our federal government is going, if they ever come around to doing it, it would be completely outdated. And so they would probably, and a lot of states are adopting, like Colorado, a lot of their stuff. A lot of people have adopted a lot of California because they were early adopters of privacy laws and things of that nature. Some, like Arkansas, have driver's license privacy, or some just have for consumer, but not your general. And it's a patchwork, even like in Arkansas, of laws that we have. Like we have the law about you can't make the deep fakes. Okay, but it's all very narrowly tailored, and it does get difficult. So,
Yeah, even getting a clear definition of PII
no,
is.
depending upon where you're at. So, okay, so we have come to the end. We've covered this. There is no lecture next week, but there is a work day. So if you have questions about your assignment 5, we will do like we've done the last 2 work days. We will have the classroom open. We will have the online classroom open for you to ask questions. If you don't have questions, you don't have to come. But if you have questions, it is an opportunity for Tim and I to be here to answer any questions you might have. We will stay as long as there are people with questions. And if you can't make it or your question comes up before or after, you are welcome to email us. Like Tim said earlier, we've had some people kind of pre and say, hey, this is kind of the direction I'm going.
And I mean, I was talking to a student last week. Take advantage of that. I mean, even if you got a little outline that, this is your starting work, we're happy to take a look and give you some feedback.
Exactly. So
Because you don't have to wait till the finished product.
that is right. And so the final assignment is due 3 weeks from today at the beginning of what would be our class time, which there will not be, of course, a class at 6 p.m. If you email it, and it's the first time we've looked at it, so that's due Wednesday. If you email it that Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday, there's a good chance we will not have the time to look at it. You might be lucky Monday. But a lot of it will depend on what our work schedule is. But you don't have to wait until it's completely done. If you've got ideas, that's fine. But also, if you really want us to give you some meaningful feedback and for you to have time to make meaningful incorporation of it, then please don't wait till the last minute. I know we had some that in the past that would submit it on like the day of, and I'm like, anything I can give you at this point in time, you don't have time to incorporate it. All right, are there any other questions, comments, concerns, musings, adages, words of wisdom? Okay, well, I will just say it is always a pleasure for Tim and I to be here with you on Wednesday night. I know it's hard. What is your question about assignment 4?
We haven't graded it yet.
Yeah, it's not graded yet, if that's what you're asking.
But go ahead and ask.
Mm, hello.
Hello?
Yeah, I wanted to ask about the assignment for when I was supposed to get a feedback so that it will help us to build upon the last submission.
Yeah, we talked about that earlier, and we said it is not done, but our goal is to have them by next class. But also, your grade on assignment 4 should not necessarily reflect the work you do on assignment 5. So if you're worried about not seeing that grade before assignment 5, they're not necessarily parallel like that. But we hope to get them done by next week.
Okay.
All right. Like I say, it's always a pleasure for Tim and I to be here with you on Wednesday nights. We appreciate all your presence and your effort and
You got presents?
attendance.
I didn't get any presents.
Your present is a gift.
Oh, okay.
It's a gift, Tim. And if you have any questions, we're here for you. Otherwise, we just always want you to remember that this class is important like the rest of your studies, but it's not your complete life.
Yep.
So don't forget why you do this. Your family's at home, your friends, your dogs and cats, and, remember
Birds,
your birds,
fish,
fish.
iguanas.
Yeah, I don't do reptiles. But just remember that the reasons why you're putting in all this effort and to take care of yourself and to take care of them, to take care of others. It has been a difficult time over this last 6 weeks with the government shutdown and people struggling and just people struggling in general. Mental health is a real issue. And remember, if you're struggling, it doesn't have to be like a diagnosed, mental health condition. Sometimes people just struggle with life, or they're depressed, or they're overwhelmed, or they're sad, they're away from home, whatever the case is. Always reach out to somebody, and just remember you don't have to do it alone.
Take care of yourselves and take care of the people you care about.
That is right. And like I say, if there's anything we could do for you, we wish you all the best in your future endeavors.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
See you next week.
All right. We have stopped recording.